a citizen-run, a citizen-funded initiative. We don't have a single large donor. We're doing this all on our own, almost exclusively by volunteers. We want to start a national dialogue. Whenever a nation faces a crisis, the nation has to choose how it's going to react to that crisis. But we have all gone through a crisis. And in Canada, people are still afraid.
It has not been disclosed to the general public the contents of the material.
So in that moment, she framed every unvaccinated person, including her guest on the show, as a danger to public safety.
What's interesting also is that nobody can name a single real-world vaccine success story where COVID rates went down at a nursing home or a funeral home after the vax rollout.
You're in a cancer clinic and you feel abused by everybody because they didn't want to know of you. They wanted to know your mask. They wanted to make personal contact with your mask, and that was the horror of it.
How did we get to this point?
A nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. That's still where we are in this nation, Canada, because no government, no authority wants to inquire into its handling or mishandling of the last 3 years' response to COVID-19.
Busy, but we've been working on stuff. And tonight we've got the most exciting roundtable panel that I think we've ever had. You've got to stick around for this. There's amazing news coming in for the National Citizens Inquiry in Canada, the world's first citizens-led inquiry into any country's COVID policies, which was a smashing success, and we're moving into a new era now. And to tell us all about this, we've got several people that have been deeply involved with the NCI and its creation since the beginning. To begin with, I'd like to throw over to Sean Buckley, lead counsel for the NCI, to give us a rundown on this exciting new news from the NCI and the developments that are to come.
Well, Jason, I think that'd be the whole show. That's so broad. But I'd like to start just by kind of recounting, what has happened, because I think, everyone would agree with me that the NCI was a surprise. I know that I was involved from the very beginning in helping to set up and run it. And when I attended at the hearings, I was completely surprised by what happened, because, the witnesses taking the stand, it was just raw honesty and raw emotion, and actually us being able to hear each other's stories brought us together in a way that none of us anticipated at all. And then out of, in the middle of it, God just showed up and started to tell us to start forgiving each other and to stop being afraid and to actually become active in the world around you and starting to take personal responsibility for it. And I experienced this community that I just hadn't experienced before. And it's interesting. We're going to be sharing with you some challenges that we're having. And when I was speaking with somebody else about that, they were talking about how they described the NCI experience of actually being at the hearings as sacred. That was the word they used, that literally if you attended most of the hearings, you were changed, and you feel really protective about the NCI, about the witness testimonies, and you just want to see the whole world to see it. You want them to be privileged, and you want people that know nothing about the NCI to just start watching. I mean, we have a challenge: just watch 3 witnesses, pick any 3. There's 305 of them, but you watch 3 and you're going to be hooked. And then you'll be just watching and watching. You'll be crying, you'll be laughing, and every emotion in between. But it's just something unique, and it's unique just because it is just raw and honest, and people telling the truth under oath, telling their stories, and the rest of us listening to the stories. And there's just something about that. So we're going to be talking today about, how we started, what our structure was, some challenges that we've recently run into. And, some of you might think, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But it's really not. And, we've got on this call 3 of the founding members of the NCI support group, which, got us off the ground when we, were just a dream, when we didn't know what would happen. And I can tell you that we're all excited because out of the adversity that we're facing, we're already putting things in place that are going to allow us to have more hearings, that are going to allow us to push the commission report and just move forward in ways that we haven't been able to do before. So, it's kind of, I don't want anyone to be upset with what we say or share, and just understand that actually God is moving and he has his hands on things. And we're just inviting you to participate in what's happening and basically to, walk with us going forward. And definitely if you, haven't been watching the NCI, my gosh, please do.
It'd be worth it then to go over this slightly dry but also inspiring story of how the NCI actually started and the structure, the official structure of the NCI, because this is going to be crucial to what we're talking about.
Okay, well, I'll start, but Ted and Scarlett were there from the beginning too, so they can chime in. But my involvement began actually with a different project called Citizens Hearings Canada, and it has its own website. And it was a much smaller adventure. So a group of us got together, and we were inspired by Senator Johnson in the United States, that periodically holds hearings in the Senate, and also by Senator Robertson in Australia, that has done the same. And we thought, well, why don't we throw together a few days of hearings with Canadian witnesses to kind of emulate what they did? And so we put on 3 days of hearings. It was very different than the NCI. Every witness had a strict time limit. No one was called under oath and questioned by lawyers. But it was still a beautiful experience. And the idea was, let's hear what Canadians have to say. Now, after that, the group that had put on the citizens' hearings thought, why don't we, basically do what the NCI has done? And at about the same time, another group went public saying, hey, we think that there should be, I'll call it a national citizens inquiry. That wouldn't have been the term used, but basically describing the same thing we wanted to do. So the two groups got together and were feeling each other out for a while. So the group I was with, we'd actually held our own meetings, can we work with these people and the like. But it turned out once we started working on terms of references that some members dropped out of both groups, and those left still interested we were called the steering committee at the time. And, we started going. We later decided, actually very quickly, we better change our name to the support group, because we don't want a name that would suggest that we in any way could dictate, what these commissioners that we were dreaming about being independent would do. But that's kind of our beginning. So maybe Ted and Scarlett want to chime in.
Well, what I remember about that time, Sean, is this outrageous goal that we had to hold a citizen-led, citizen-funded inquiry that would go across the country. But I remember we started off with just a dream. We didn't have any infrastructure in place, and we had no money. And what I recall is that we were reluctant to declare the cities that we would hold hearings in beyond the first 2 cities, because we didn't know if there would be funds to go to the 3rd city. And then something remarkable happened. As you talk about, the testimonies were riveting. They were life transforming. People were moved. I actually think that NCI is one of the most important events in Canadian history. And I'm hoping that will be recognized because it was transformative for people. And then the donations began to pour in. The people who wanted to volunteer to help to pull events or the inquiry together just became hundreds, then over 1,000. And there was just this tsunami of desire for a forum where people could share the impact that the government measures during COVID had on their personal lives, on their businesses, on their families, and on their community. And I was the person that helped to organize the Vancouver hearings, and just being in the company of hundreds of people that all held the same vision, it was an incredible experience. And we quickly came to the realization there's something important in holding these kinds of inquiries that are led by citizens and funded by citizens, because there's a integrity to it that unfortunately doesn't happen with government-led inquiries. And so we quickly began to realize that this is something that has to continue. It's too important to end in 2023. So those are my memories of the beginning.
And Scarlett, anything to add about bringing all this together at the start?
Oh, yes. When things kicked off, they certainly did. We had some pretty lofty goals, and it was tons of fun. We were a very diverse group. We all brought something very different to the table. It was absolutely incredible. So as Ted was chairing the hearings out west, I was volunteered to do the ones in the east and do Toronto. So I think Toronto was our second or third city up. So we had kind of like lessons to learn as you go. And again, this had never been done before. So lots of learning along the way in short order. But it was incredible, the amount of public support, and just to give people in this country a voice, right? So many. I'm sure we all spent hours on the phone every night just doing witness intake. And it was so emotional to hear people's stories. And sadly, I don't think the public knows that a lot of those people never did make the stand. Like we had a lot at the last minute. It was just too far out of their comfort zone, right? And you really could never force that upon somebody. I know we lost a lot of great witnesses that just didn't think that they could do it publicly, but a very big honor to have conversations. And I still talk to many of them still to this day. So just an amazing experience.
Perhaps next round. So then the three of you, plus some others not present, made up the initial group that made the decisions, right? And then as you create an actual organization, some structure needed to be built out. So perhaps we could move to that.
Because Jason, even the way you described it is a little inaccurate.
Right. Yeah.
So because this actually becomes important because of the difficulties that have arisen. I mean, it's kind of important to understand. So there were 11 of us at the beginning, and if I'm correct, 3 or 4 have gone and become replaced. If people left for various reasons, we bring other people in so that we'd have a good group. But we started with 11 people, and really, like right out of the gate, what are our terms of reference? What do we want to accomplish? How many cities do we want to do this in? How do we get the commissioners independent? Do we want to have focused hearings, where we're trying to pick topics and things like this? Like, I've been going over our, earlier minutes and kind of having a nostalgia trip on, kind of all the things. And we had no idea what we didn't know. Now, so we form, and I think, our first, real meeting where we, those from the 2 groups that decided, no, we're in. So we're now the original 11. I think it was July 29th, 2022, which I would term as our first, real meeting of that core group after these initial meetings. Well, I mean, we're setting down, quorum, we're setting down voting rights. We're basically structuring ourselves in a very formal way as a unincorporated association. So, Jason, the 5 of us here could decide, well, we want to go and undertake a project. We don't need to incorporate for that. We, that's not necessary. But we got to a point where, okay, we're going to need money to do this. So do we have, one of us collect funds, or do we incorporate a not-for-profit to collect funds? And so we made the decision that we would incorporate a not-for-profit. And it's curious, I was going through again our minutes for when we were doing this. We actually drafted a specific document that, okay, here's our proposal for a not-for-profit. And it's just so clear, we're forming this only to collect and disperse funds for the support group, but it's the support group that runs everything and makes all the decisions. And that was adopted by the support group. And it even shows up in the history, like the bylaws of the corporation itself set out we're being incorporated by the support group to collect and disperse funds for the National Citizens Inquiry. So I think it's very important, and we've got a clear paper trail. This has been totally consistent, and Ted and Scarlett can speak to their understanding. We incorporated a nonprofit solely to receive and disperse funds, and that nonprofit has, up till recently, that's all they did. They had no management, although the directors were all part of the support group. So maybe I'll let Ted and Scarlett chime in on that question.
Well, Sean's outlined the way that we move through our setting up the infrastructure, and it actually worked beautifully. We pulled off that grand vision and held hearings in 8 cities, and as Sean said, 305 testimonies under oath, the largest inventory of testimonies received under oath in the world, actually. And then I would say the crowning achievement was the commissioner's report, the final report, which was delivered on November the 28th, an incredible document that included hundreds of pages of recommendations, that included transcripts of every witness that testified. And we felt like we had achieved an incredible goal. And we also came to the realization that it's not enough, that there's more that's required, that this whole experience over the last 4 years has really revealed that there's a lack of accountability, not only in our governments and our mainstream media, in our regulatory agencies, and in virtually every aspect of society that we counted on to act as guardrails and safeguards. And so there was a strong desire by the core group of us that we wanted the NCI to continue on, that it ought to have an ongoing mandate. And what we discovered in the process of beginning to dream the next steps is that we had some colleagues on that support group who didn't share our vision. And they actually wanted to see that the NCI end at the end of 2023. And so we started to see a split, and unfortunately that split morphed into something even more challenging, because what ended up happening is the directors of the NCI began to claim authority for the future of the NCI.
Not the NCI, Ted, the CIC.
Right. So we still got, let's backpedal one click before we get right into that. The CIC, which stands for
Citizens Inquiry Canada. So that's the name of the nonprofit. So that is
the nonprofit corporation. Now, just to give people an idea of the flow, the what would normally be called a steering committee is here called the support group, or the SG. Even because you guys didn't really want to take the name steering committee because it sounds so kind of political and absolutist. So the idea was to create a corporation that, officially is incorporated. Why people make incorporations, especially for money stuff, keep it separate, keep it official books with its own structure. But it basically was set up, and this is delineated in the bylaws, that they receive and disperse funds. The support group, the SG, that was really what we would think of as running the NCI, would make, would it be fair to say, make official requests or just demands to the CIC to get funding for each bit of the operation, and the CIC would have to comply, or they had a board of directors that would then vote, or how'd that structure work?
So what we did, and hopefully we'll release our minutes on this so that everyone can just kind of view the paper trail, is so all the members, when you have a nonprofit organization, you have membership. So the members were the members of the support group. So the two are the same. but we only listed 3 directors, and Ted and Scarlett can correct me on this, but my recollection of that discussion is, like Ted was visibly involved in Vaccine Choice Canada, for example. Some of the other of the 11 members would also be recognizable as associated with other groups. I mean, Scarlett was it helped form another group. And so, but here we want to set up an independent inquiry. Well, if it looks like, a bunch of freedom groups are coming together, we were actually worried about the criticism. Well, you guys can't do this. You can't, this isn't going to be independent. Where our position is, actually, it doesn't matter who we are, watch what we do. Because and Ted and Scarlett back me up, the intention from day one with all of us was, let's structure this so it truly was as independent as we could possibly make it, with clear separation with the commissioners. So we only listed 3 directors, and I'm thinking, well, these are 3 that are willing to be public. I think there were other reasons now, but that would just be purely speculation. But we had 3. I know I didn't want to be named. I was afraid to be out there public. I didn't want my name out there. Remember, this was in the middle of the dark days, where we still didn't know it was going to end, let alone that the truckers would create such a long reprieve for us. And hopefully the efforts of others. I think we're all contributing in our own way. So we actually had a proposal that formed part of our official record that was adopted by a vote at the support group. And the proposal is clear. It's the support group that runs the nonprofit, not the other way around. The nonprofit is solely there to collect and disperse funds. And this is reflected in other documents. Go to our website and look at the commission rules. Look at the introduction. It's set out. The CIC isn't even mentioned in our rules, and that governs both the commissioners and the NCI administration. There's no mention of the CIC. There is a mention twice of a nonprofit organization run by the support group. Go to Section 8 of the rules. They're on our website. Definitions. Go to the definition of support group. It says right in our rules, right on our website, the support group manages both the National Citizens Inquiry and the nonprofit corporation set up to collect and disperse funds. So, Jason, I want you and the viewers to understand all of the documentation is so clear that, the support group ran the CIC. And we're all the same people anyway. So we had no problems until very recently.
You're muted, Jason.
Jason, you're muted.
Well, what's your point? Sorry. As we can see, this is all laid out with documentation on the site itself. If I can get a share. Toby, give me a share. All right, thanks, Toby. Here we go. The NCI is completely transparent. So you can find terms of reference documentation on the site itself and check out everything that Sean and Ted and Scarlett have to tell us tonight about the founding of the organization and the terms of the organization, the structure, and it's all there. So this was all worked out. The bylaws are there. The rules are
the
there.
bylaws, you can go to Corporate Canada site and download them. There's not even a fee.
Yeah, right. Because all this is publicly filed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is to set up the structure that the support group is what anyone would think of as the steering or executive committee, what people would need to go through to get something done with the NCI. You talk to the support group. You don't talk to the nonprofit that's there to hold funds. Moving forward to present day, something's changed in that element involving people that are that were in the NCI, that are in the CIC. Can we uncloud that and bring us up to date to where we are now and the situations that we face? Anyone can take that.
Well, I can jump in there, Jason. Yeah, there's a shift that happened when we began to talk about the future of the NCI, and quite surprisingly, the two individuals that were both on the support group and the directors of the not-for-profit organization began to make statements that it wasn't within the purview, it wasn't within the authority of the support group to decide the future of the NCI. And I have to say that we are taken back by those kinds of statements. We try to get some clarification without some success, and then it seemed like that division escalated. A clear example of that is that the directors of the CIC, which were actually managing our funds, contacted our paid staff and directed them not to follow the directions of the support group, not to follow the directions of those that had been administering the NCI from day one. And added to that is they were directed to withhold the access codes to our social media accounts, or email accounts, or live streaming accounts. So that began to put us in a very challenging situation.
So basically, you guys awake one day to a bit of a palace coup with the bankers almost trying to take over the running of the operation, sending out, trying to, yeah, it smells like a coup.
I
trying to gather in the important people and get them to not listen to other people, trying to cut out the support group and take over through the CIC, take over through the nonprofit essential, bank operation of the unit is being used to try to now control the NCI. Am I right in my citizen summary?
Jason, the language that I used when I was beginning to describe this is it felt like a hostile takeover. And I think all of us were surprised and confused because we had just accomplished something historic. And then it felt like there was efforts made to silence us and to prevent us from continuing the good work of the NCI.
After such success, Scarlett, how did this feel?
Oh, it's undescribable. And I remember it well because after we got the hearings moved forward, when you're involved in something that intense, it's great. But as soon as it's over, you're like, oh, never again. And then when the hearings stopped, we thought, no, we should do this again, right? Like this, yeah, we were so moved by it. So we sort of had two camps of thought. And this is at the time we were waiting for the commissioner's report. So we had some idle time, I think, right? So we had talked about forming a group that would like to take the National Citizens Inquiry and make it a tool for the public. We felt like we had proved ourselves. We had been transparent and independent, and we thought that we gained a lot of credibility and it would be a shame. And as we worked towards that, we just saw a greater need to expand. And that was okay, right? There was a lot of us on the support committee. There was those that thought, no, that this was our mandate. This was our terms of reference to have an inquiry based on that. But never did I see it moving to this divide. And it's so sad that it did.
So there was certainly an internal debate going on. And I remember before even the last hearings, already there were roundtables being held to discuss, hey, what do you think we should do next, citizens? We're a citizens inquiry, and basically opening discussions with the public who had supported NCI, saying, what would you guys like to see us do next? And certainly plenty of, I would say the majority of followers of the NCI would like to see more. So, but I can see, there also was the initial mandate, which was completed with success. So this was certainly, I guess, from what you're saying, an internal debate. So, you guys were throwing around, should we just, shutter and move on, or should we try to do more? But that suddenly one day becomes one side putting their foot down and trying to take away the debate and just end it. So if if this section doing the quote unquote hostile takeover had their way right now, the NCI would be shutting its doors. Is that a fair summation? Anyone can take that.
Well, I would suggest, Jason, that it's actually unclear what their intention is, and I think that's the challenge. Is that what we do know, though, is that they have said that the decision doesn't belong to the support group; it belongs to the 2 directors and members of the CIC. And our position is the CIC gets to decide their future at an annual general meeting that has to be held before around the beginning of March. But they don't get to decide the future of the NCI. I suggest that that's a decision of Canadians who have contacted us and said, this is too important and needs to continue. And we're honoring the request of Canadians who want to see a citizen-led, citizen-funded mechanism of accountability continue going forward.
Yeah, and their claim to be able to have this authority, this is what gets me, since everything was kind of delineated and set out in advance. Are they pulling authority for this simply because they hold the purse strings?
If I can jump in and maybe even take this a different direction, because I think I can speak for Ted and Scarlett when I say we are surprised. Because our understanding was, as we outlined to you, and every all our record, because we kept a really good record trail. We have minutes. Like I say, we had this, here's what we want to do with setting up the nonprofit, and it's part of our official minutes and record and the bylaws themselves and our rules. Like they won't be able to point anything like that. So, and in fact, they themselves. So I mean. One of them, Mr. David Ross, he left the support group on, I think it was December 13th. So he's no longer a member of the NCI support group. Well, he had been our chair. 2 days after he leaves, so he's no longer on the support group. He's no longer chair. Well, I mean, he emails Ted and says, "Can you make sure that a specific lawyer is appointed to be lawyer for the CIC, because we've got this annual general meeting coming up and we have to deal with it." Now that email is completely consistent with how we acted as chair and how we've all organized ourselves. But then the following week he's saying, no, you guys have no authority to make any decisions, even how you manage yourselves, let alone appointing counsel for the CIC. So the people involved that are saying no, the CIC has all the power, had actually been instrumental in, drafting these documents and setting ourselves up where it was the opposite. So it's interesting, but, we don't know why it's happening. But I can tell you, Jason, one thing that really frustrates me is that they've basically sabotaged us for a while. Now, I started by saying, we're all excited because we're stronger now, and we're gonna deal with that. This is a good news story, so I don't want anyone, thinking otherwise. But let's take our social media person that is a hired contractor. Well, my wife has managed social media since the beginning, and would be meeting with this person daily, and we live in the same house, so I'm constantly hearing these conversations. They work together for a year, both contributing. And then all of a sudden this person turns his back and is now posting, pretending to be the NCI, when this person, like our social media accounts, we've lost control over them. So, we've got Mr. Chess Crosby, who's no longer involved in the NCI, and our former social media contractor, basically pretending to be the NCI, and they're not. And the messaging has gotten off track, and it's really the only reason we're going public about this is so that people appreciate, it's not the NCI saying things like, there's going to be hell to pay and stuff like that. And linking to sites of people that we wouldn't be posting as part of an independent inquiry. So we do want the public to know we've lost control over it. But it's really sad, because we've been working with these people to build all this up. So understand, a lot of us have mixed feelings, and these people really contributed. In meaningful ways to pull this off. It was an impossible task. So so we're conflicted. On one hand, we're really grateful for how they helped us to get here, and on the other, like, why would you take control of our social media accounts? We now can't put pressure on pushing the commissioner's report until we rebuild our new social media channels. Before we lost our social media channels, we had just gotten a new program, and to push the interim commissioner's report that was calling for a stopping of all vaccination. I mean, I think in a week period, we had like 6,000 emails go out to politicians. Well, we've lost that leverage now because our social media fellow is not working with us anymore. And so it's a really interesting place to be. Like I say, we're going to be much stronger through this, but we have real mixed feelings.
Yeah, you can see. I mean, that the building of the NCI was very organic and very citizen and very step by step, and all these things that happen as you realize you're growing and you need to do this and you need to do that, and we're going to need a bit of that, and so much of it is obviously so grassroots. Where we found a guy who's great with social media. Young person, really great at this stuff. Okay, great, bring them in and we'll work with them every day, and other people to run roundtables and stuff like that don't end up, officially signing ironclad contracts and stuff, because while the structure is being built out properly and corporately and all that, and obviously achieved all goals wonderfully as a professional organization, lots of little tidbits here and there are just, still people trusting each other and building and growing naturally. So a big message that, I, as a super spreader of truth and, massive user of social media to get things done, want all of the great people, the hundreds of thousands of people who have done, again, hundreds of thousands, if not millions by now, tweets and retweets and reposts and Facebooks and shows and YouTube videos and interviews, all about the being inspired by the NCI, that there is a split with social media. And so the clear thing to take from what Sean said is that the NCI account that everyone's been watching and posting and retweeting and totally worked with the support group the entire time is now under the auspices of the CIC, the nonprofit that is run by, the Chess Crosbys, by the politicians. I'll make it simple and say there's the politicians and there's, the citizens. And the politicians are running the nonprofit, and with them comes the social media. They're able to grab control of the social media through the contractor that was doing that work. And for now, until we can bring that contractor back into the fold, there's going to be a split. There's going to be a schism. Toby, if I can get screen share back, just to illustrate for everyone, you can go to nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, head over to social media, and basically everything's being rebranded. The same look, same videos, same everything, just with NCI Canada. So, it's at NCI Canada for Twitter now. Everyone needs to follow these, as again, National Citizen Inquiry, nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, social media, and get following all of the new social media accounts. And, if we can't amalgamate everything, then these are going to be the new ones to follow. And most importantly, since the support group wants to take further action for Canadian citizens moving forward, this is who to follow. If you want more testimony, if you want more citizens being heard, and if you want more action and learn more about what was done to us, it's going to be through the support group. It's going to be through the official NCI, these new social media accounts, and this group that's going to give you new action. Whereas we're hearing the politicians that are trying to take over through the previous nonprofit, as far as we know, their intent is to shut it down, just end it. Moving forward from there, what's next?
Well, I'm wondering, you might want to, because you were just talking about social media, just have Don explain, what's been going on and kind of filling in on that.
Yeah, for sure, Don. I bet you've been through the ringer over the last little while with this.
It's only been a
Don,
minute.
just so people know, we have the same last name, but maybe if we went way back, we're related. But as far as we know, we're not related. So I just, I don't want people to think that this is
some Viking mama in there somewhere.
We have a common ancestor. Yeah. So it's been an awesome adventure with the NCI. So I will actually go. So from the technical standpoint, so I'm one of the volunteers that's been doing a lot of the technicality and a lot of the technical stuff for the NCI for a long time now. And so I've been working on the website, doing all things in terms of, audio, video, all things digital. And looking back on everything, we got off on a shaky start with the social media in the beginning, in the first place, because the NCI didn't start with social media until around the Winnipeg hearings. So like in the third city. So it was really there was so much focus paid with the physicality and the logistics of getting the hearings together and getting the live streaming and everything. So the social media was basically added, on the fly during the hearings. And that's when a lot of us joined. And that's when the Twitter fan club started. That is when, all of the various social media channels really started to get stood up. And so there wasn't a lot of, and so if you're starting a new company or if you're doing a startup, you have someone in charge of this, and you actually put someone and you get some coherence and some consistency across all your social media. And so that didn't happen with the NCI because it was all citizens and it was all volunteers. So everyone was showing up and, just contributing in the way that they could. And so as a result, all of the social media is fairly disparate, across all of the various channels. So it had always been on my mind, to do a reboot over time, especially with regards to the Rumble, where all of the videos are hosted, because the Rumble interface is a little bit, sometimes it needs a little work. It's not the greatest, but it's a freedom-based interface, and it's a non-censorship based system. So a lot of groups are able to rely on Rumble. And so we've got all of our video there. And over the last year or so, a lot of the, a fair amount, like I won't say a large amount, but a small amount of, money was actually put into the generation and the boosting of the social media, because that at that time there was no media coverage through all of the hearings. And so social media and the sharing of all of the audience and, the boosting of posts and all of this was what was needed in order to get all of the social media up and online. And so now we're in the situation where it's okay. We actually do have an opportunity. So that was actually kind of a blessing in disguise, and it was actually an opportunity to do a transformation and an alchemization, if you would, of all the social media. And so we've actually been able to kind of get a one tag, the NCI Canada tag, has been, for the most part, I've been able to create that amongst all of the social media platforms. So we'll have a little bit more of a cohesive social media presence going forward into the future. And we'll be able to eventually sunset those old channels and, just move forward under, the NCI Canada, banner, hashtag, username, handle into the future. So there's, in terms of everything that is going on, at the end result, the actual website becomes the single source of truth, because if we want to basically make it so that anyone who wants to really find out about the NCI goes to the website first. So it's nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, and we're continuously building out the website. And so if you ever anything you want to know about the NCI, that is your first stop, and then from there you can go on. So there's a new newsletter that we launched. There's a new all of the new social media, and just keeping in mind that generally speaking, the consciousness of social media amongst all of us is really a 3-month span of time. And if you look back in your history, if you look back in your feed on your various social media, how far back do you go? So it's very much a very present thing. And so that was kind of like, that is one thing that's kind of like in our advantage going forward. So we basically have the website and we have all of our new social media, and we're going to be putting everything out in a really great cohesive way, and giving the people, the citizens, the ability to share us and consistently across all of the platforms, so that we can keep up with our mission, the listen, learn, and recommend this mission. And this is something that is super, super important for 24, because the job of the NCI isn't done. We have the commissioner's report. The commissioner's report was put out in November, and as anyone would remind us and remind anyone who has had any involvement with the NCI, the initial question always was, what is it going to do? What's the benefit? We've seen so much over these past 4 years now of COVID. We're into year 4, and we've seen so much where we've seen the platitudes, and we've seen the gaslighting, and we've seen the lies and the censorship, and we saw what happened with the truckers movement, and we saw what the government did to the truckers, and what they were able to do in order to avoid accountability, like the machinations that we've seen. And so always the process was, how can the NCI have any teeth? Well, the idea has been, it's not up to us, it's up to all of us. So we have the initial milestone was made, the checkpoint was made, and that was made with a lot of work from a lot of volunteers, a lot of Canadians donating time, donating money, great amount of time, in order to produce this commissioner's report. And it's available, and we're not stopping. So a lot of the future, and I won't go too off about what's coming up into the future, but there's a lot of initiatives that we have planned for 24 and beyond. And it involves getting the recommendations of the commissioner's report out and schooling the people that need to know about what really happened. And so all of that is this great segue into the future going forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Back to you,
in
Doll.
the meantime, rebuild the social media. It's a hell of a thing. It takes so long. I mean, any of us, that's my world, and it just takes a long time. Takes a long time times 10 if you're Canadian,
and money,
small population. So
yeah, but
but you have the website. The website has remained under support group control, and just moving forward, we don't know what the CIC side, the politician side, what their intention is, and so if I haven't seen the NCI social media suddenly flip over to pure evil or anything. They're just retweeting testimony and that kind of stuff. So it just that people need to know NCI Canada is going to be the official voice of the official support group that has always had control over the direction of the NCI moving forward. And as you say, you have the main channel of the website. For such an official organization, you have that main place to send people to, and they can pick up socials from there, and people can readjust, I guess, as moving forward, and we'll see what the politicians involved here, what they're up to. We don't know, you don't know, and I think the goal is to not really care. They should hopefully just fall off, since they not really out there announcing plans or anything. And so, speaking of, are we on the cusp of the National Citizens Inquiry perhaps becoming kind of a liberty organization that's going to continue to hold hearings and stuff when the government overreaches? So what do we feel about the future here? Anyone can take that.
Oh, I'd love to jump in. So yeah, and we all appreciate that it can take time to build social media channels. Like, we get that. And I mean, obviously nobody's happy to lose control over social media channels that citizens helped build. I mean, not just all the retweeting and things like that. Like, I think Don got involved because some other volunteer got a whole bunch of people clipping because we were creating so much content, and we literally needed volunteers to be doing clipping so we could be posting the content. Like, building those social media channels was 100% citizen initiative, and it was people donating that paid our contractors' wages and provided funds for this pushing, where you push posts. So, it's a real disappointment, and I think blow to all those volunteers that we've lost control over that. But I think it's important for everyone to appreciate the support group is genuinely excited. I'm more excited than I have been for a long time. And if I can explain why, it's like after these hearings, when did they end, Ted? Was it June? I mean, my whole year's been May. It's just been a blur. There you go. So they ended. I mean, it's almost like summer camp has ended. We've been traveling with these commissioners and the AV team and Michelle and just working with all these beautiful people. And Ted had alluded to this and Scarlett, just the volunteers and just to have some vision and just people being excited to be able to do something, right? And something that just turned out to be beautiful, giving people all these voices. Well, Jason, we actually, the NCI support group, we struck a committee right after the hearings and do we want to have more committees? And we did, more hearings rather than more committees. Of course, we don't want more committees. Do we want to have more hearings? We actually probably, I'd have to go look back at the minutes, July or August, decided we're going to have more hearings and expand our remit to not just be COVID. I personally think we've got a lot more listening to each other on COVID. But let's say some other issue comes up where the government isn't being held to account. Well, haven't the citizens actually just revealed something beautiful here where, we can organize and have impartial hearings just to hear what people say? Yeah, I mean, we're not the government. We can't force change, but actually just citizens coming together, there is a form of accountability with people hearing truth. And so we're excited about that. And we had decided we wanted to do that. Well, Jason, now it's the first time as a support group we're really free to do that again, because we were being hampered by within because we were split. A house divided can't stand. And now we're not divided. And we've added some more people to the support group that are like-minded. And we've got a new nonprofit called actually National Citizens Inquiry. So I think today's the first day you can donate to us, or tomorrow. So what? The donate button's up again. You can donate to us, but we're officially broke because we've lost the funds that people had donated to help us before, and we're hoping we'll get those funds back. But we've got now experience. We've got this community. And, when you think we started in July 2022, I mean, we're miles ahead. So, I mean, I don't know. And I think Ted and Scarlett feel the same way. At first it was oh my gosh, what's happening and all this stress. But now for the first time, first time in a long time, I'm excited about what the NCI can do.
Me too. This is and with lessons learned, it's build an airtight organization this time. Yes. Can
I just step in and say, but let's not be negative, because the whole point about the NCI, the sole message is just people taking responsibility themselves, and reasonable people can disagree. So, yes, there have been members of the support group that are no longer members of the support group that were voicing, I'm not sure that this should continue, but we're only here because of their participation also. Like they were vital, and let's not forget that. Like they helped pull this off in a real important way, and let's privilege what they've done. And they're not done. Maybe maybe their path is a different path, but let's not in any way try to undermine what they're doing or take away from the contribution they had. That we're not saying that at all. Like I'm going through all these minutes and stuff like that just to, okay, I'm right. All the documentation is as we say it is, but that documentation also shows them, pulling a lot of weight and really helping pull this off. And let's not lose sight of that at all. Like, so I'd actually like to privilege what they did, but invite everyone that wants to continue with more hearings and wants to continue to support those of us that want to move the NCI in this direction. Well, yeah, please participate with us, but I don't want you to interpret what we're saying as, in any way taking away from the really significant contributions they made.
Yeah, we have no evidence or thoughts of any evil or darkness going on. Just one of those things where organizations get large and things happen and there's different views, and that's all we know for now. No one knows what's in the minds of everyone involved. And as you said, people that are with the CIC side of things right now, we know we're heroes in their own way for growing this, starting this, promoting it, yada yada. They just have a different things came to a head somehow, and due to corporate foolery, there's a bit of a mess to clean up at the moment. But as you said, it's an exciting new time, and few things to clean up on the social media side of things. But other than that, the support group is declaring readiness to move forward and continue doing work, because no one's fooling ourselves that as brilliant as the commissioner's report is, that even if every recommendation of the report was taken up, we're still under government that is threatening to do all sorts of stuff that citizens are gonna do. Further inquiry is probably needed. And people who want to join an inquiry, NCI Canada, the support group, is where it's at. You guys are openly declaring intentions to move forward and keep holding the government's feet to the fire, and we thank you for it. Any other thoughts we need to get on the table? Scarlett, you've been too quiet over there. Let's hear from you. What do you think can happen moving forward?
That never happens that I'm quiet. No, I just think it's important to reiterate, like, we were built on a foundation of transparency, and it wasn't easy when we sat down and thought these troubles have come so far that we have to, you like any trouble, you kind of hope it goes away on its own, and this will solve itself. And they continued to grow and continued to grow until it was going to hamper our plans to move forward. So yeah, it was not easy to come out and say what we needed to say tonight, but I just want to, it needed to be said, and in full transparency. And I really look forward to putting all the work into getting the commissioner's report out. So our work's been hampered a little bit. That's where we were guns a-blazing too. So
we'll get it out. And you'd like to see a future of hearing more witnesses.
Yes, absolutely. There's so many topics, right? Like, sky's the limit when we talk about some exciting things. And what it is not about us, right? It's Canadians. We're here for Canadians. And it was so empowering to see people that would have never had a voice have a voice. Like, you just don't want to stop doing something like that.
And the inquiry, it was specifically set up to look at the COVID measures, but it just so immediately blooms out into so much else that was done. So many dangerous precedents set by governments all over the world, and ours perhaps more than any in many areas. You could see where specific inquiries could go off and look at several of the other major issues where our government freely just played with the Constitution and the Charter at will, and it seemed to have gotten away with it, though things are changing slightly. Recently, excellent federal court ruling and other things, so you can see where many more topics could be brought up. Ted, you're in agreement with this? You want to keep on doing inquiry?
Absolutely. Yeah. The NCI has really demonstrated its role as a system of citizen accountability, citizen-led, citizen-funded, and we see the importance of it. If anything, I think that what we've done is we've helped to re-energize democracy in Canada and help governments to understand they have to be accountable to the people, and so that means the people have to stand up. But I want to just speak to the tens of thousands of Canadians who donated, volunteered, shared the testimonies with others, and really are what the NCI is all about. And so I just want to declare a message is that we're going forward. This is too important to stop in 2023. We think that this is an important role for a healthy democracy, and we intend to make sure that it continues.
I see the NCI as a way to really get the fruition of the promise of the internet and the democratization of the airwaves. And if you can get tens of thousands of people together focused on something, the power that comes from that is what democracy is supposed to be. And despite their attempts they'll win if we don't do this. There won't be freedom of speech. There won't be freedom of access. There won't be the ability to ever discuss these things again. As we know, my channel, Super Spreaders, barely exists on YouTube anymore, even though we exploded during the convoy to almost from 15 to 3,000 subscribers through the Freedom Convoy. But it's just monthly. Someone said COVID on your channel, you got a strike. So now you can't put anything controversial up for a year or your channel's gone completely. That's the future we're moving into under, the in the same kind of structures were so blatantly used for the COVID mandates and the controls that each of our governments took. The similarities there, the future is clear. Shut up, do what you're told. That's it. But it's something like the Citizens Inquiry proves by its existence that not everyone's down for that. Some people want to question this, and we'll only get there through numbers. And I'm so excited for what's going to happen. Sean, if you want to take us out on that,
Well, I don't know that I can top that. I mean, just even so your audience knows, Jason, so that commercial, we're a citizen-led, citizen-funded, that we proudly run, before any event that we do. Well, I mean, Jason, am I correct? You're watching the NCI and you're going, these guys need a lead-in. So you just did it. And I can tell you, when I first saw it, I thought, if we had paid 10 grand for this, we would have been happy. Like, it's just so well done. And, it's just time after time. We could spend all night just talking about magical volunteer stories. So there's just, there's an appetite for people to make a difference and an appetite for people to just collaborate. And this has been, as trying as it is at times, the most beautiful experience for myself, and I think for everyone involved. Like, we feel honored to have been part of something bigger. And it is bigger because it's all of us coming together.
Fantastic. Yeah. The moving forward, it's I was worried it was going to come off complicated. It's not really that complicated. So the old socials, everyone can, keep listening to them, whatever. Just make sure you get the new ones. There isn't some giant complicated choice for people to make. Just continue being inquiring citizens and watch what we do. As was said earlier, it'll be a know them by their fruits thing. We don't know what's in the minds of the people that are running the social media side of things. Certainly, I think for most people who are here and volunteer and want to help and certainly open their pocketbooks, know that donating to anything other than through the current website right now, the support group that's making decisions for NCI cannot tell you where that money is going. You've got to go through the website to make sure that future endeavors get funded. Money that has been donated, that's going to have to get aired out during meetings and audits and that kind of thing. That's an issue. Money that's in the CIC's control is still there, so that we'll see what happens with that. And again, as Sean was saying, we don't think anybody's trying to steal it. We don't think anything evil is going on yet. No one's saying anything like that. But for as a citizen and someone been so involved in social media, getting people to pump up messages and share what the NCI is doing, I just want, there's no big schism to make a decision on. Just know that you don't donate money to the old, any old links or anything social media, the ones you were following. Perhaps consider them as a support groups of fan sites right now. The real stuff is on the site, and support us there, follow NCI there, and donate there. And everything else will get worked out. And yeah, if any closing thoughts, anyone? I think we're about through the ringer here. If there's anything I missed, let me know.
I think it's been a great conversation. Thanks for hosting this for us, Jason.
Sure has. Thank you, Ted. It's such an honor to meet you and Scarlett, and we'll be working together more. We'll be hosting more of this stuff, and we're going to have to be amping up the media game, so get used to this space.
Thanks again, Jason. I'll just the last thing that I would say is that there's been, when I mentioned that we're in year 4 of COVID, is that there's been no accountability. There's been no real accountability, and there's been lots of attempts at COVID amnesty and all of this stuff, and we know that we have a impending election coming up in the next year and a half in Canada, and everything looking back on everything that Canadians have been through and everything that we're still going through and everything that's coming, it's really important that we absolutely identify ourselves as a group, as a unified group of caring Canadian citizens that care about our country and care about the future of our country. And something, the theme that has arisen out of the NCI is that the NCI has been a bridge of an organization for a lot of things, a social bridge, a communications bridge, a bridge between different groups. Like we mentioned in the beginning, there's been a lot of crossover, and one of the beautiful things about the NCI is that it's non-assuming, and it's in terms of the mission is just about the truth and getting the truth out and standing on the truth. And in terms of what you see on social media, one of the things that I had come to realize over the past many years, in terms of watching everything that happens on social media and deciding what's misinformation and what's accurate information, there's a barometer, there's a check, there's an internal check, because discernment is internal. And at the end of the day, you can see all kinds of different sources for all your media and information, or what disinformation, malinformation, especially now that there's a big push coming from the mainstream to reestablish trust. I'll say that. But I just wanted to end with the truth comes from here. And in terms of discernment, if it's good, if what you're seeing and hearing is good, then it's true. And if it's good and if it's wholesome and it's based in love and compassion, then it's true. Anything else deserves skepticism and more inquiry. And so, we've seen people stand at the podium and be asked direct questions and give us anything but direct answers and give us anything but the actual truth. And so the NCI arose from the last 3 or 4 years, and we're basically building, a new foundation of truth around that the whole country can get behind. And it's important that we always keep that in mind, that the people that I work with, the people that are working with the NCI, are founded in truth. And when I say that, I really mean that. So,
well, I think it might be possible to say, you could probably assume that the vast majority of people that are even open to hearing about what the NCI is even doing, right, that don't think we're a bunch of crazies, probably leaning to a certain angle of the political spectrum. But the NCI has done an impeccable job of remaining non-partisan, non-political, not endorsing politicians' views, staying out of that fracas.
Yeah, and the truth
Just
is
presenting.
that the message that the NCI doesn't want to, the message that we've always maintained and tried to adhere to, is not showing favoritism to one or the other. Always falling back and always building on, the knowledge and our own body of content and our own body of work.
Well, hell, you guys tried as hard as you possibly could to get the representatives of government and everyone that did these mandates out. Not
right, and
not a lot of enthusiasm from them.
Right, and that work goes on because one of the initiatives has always been a printable format of the commissioner's report, and so that's in process, and that will happen. And so one of the things that I personally would love to see is 338 copies of those delivered by registered mail to every single MP. And we have to let them know the message has to get out, but it can't just get out on social media. It has to get out into the world. It has to get out grassroots on the ground. And so we've got a lot of work ahead. And just in order to get the commissioner's report out and get the knowledge of the commissioner's report out and get the recommendations out and give the people the understanding that, this is what really happened and this is how we can change it. And we have to, and I'll say that, I'll be the first one to say that we've got to re-educate. We've got work to do to re-educate people as to how to participate in your communities again. Because unfortunately, we've been separated by all this technology.
Yeah. Heard. All right. Any other closing thoughts, anyone? All good?
Sean.
Oh, no, Don, I think you just hit a home run there, so I'm just sitting still.
Agreed.
Oh, good.
Okay. So, I mean, the main thing right now is everyone watching, everyone that's supported, all you beautiful people, so NCI support groups everywhere, Telegram, Twitter, everybody, just quickly get over to nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, get to the social tab, and that's all the new updated social media, which will look and feel mostly identical. Just NCI Canada is mostly the new name for Rumble, Twitter, Telegram, TikTok, YouTube, all the above. And just get them added to your follows. Yep. And we'll move forward from there, and you'll just see the exciting things that are going to happen. We're going to do on 3, let's spread it. Everybody ready? We're going to spread the new NCI. 1, 2, 3. Let's spread it. Yes. All right. Excellent. And we'll be updating the entire country and the world as news comes out. I want to thank NCI for the privilege of hosting this on Super Spreaders tonight, and can't wait to tell you more. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Hey, everyone. I'm here right now. Sorry if there's any audio weirdness. Head over to the space, scan the QR code, We'll see you there.
We are a citizen organized, a citizen run, a citizen funded initiative. We don't have a single large donor. We're doing this all on our own, almost exclusively by volunteers. We want to start a national dialogue. Whenever a nation faces a crisis, the nation has to choose how it's going to react to that crisis. But we have all gone through a crisis. And in Canada, people are still afraid.
It has not been disclosed to the general public the contents of the material.
So in that moment, she framed every unvaccinated person, including her guest on the show, as a danger to public safety.
What's interesting also is that nobody can name a single real-world vaccine success story where COVID rates went down at a nursing home or a funeral home after the vax rollout.
You're in a cancer clinic and you feel abused by everybody because they didn't want to know of you. They wanted to know your mask. They wanted to make personal contact with your mask, and that was the horror of it.
How did we get to this point?
A nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. That's still where we are in this nation, Canada, because no government, no authority wants to inquire into its handling or mishandling of the last 3 years' response to COVID-19.
You know, I know who was